that Paulette Amory is with us and playing and singing, and you know what? We're delighted that you were here. So thank you. So let us all stand and sing Surely the Presence. You could be sitting in your car somewhere with your Facebook opened and wanting to join us for the service today, so we welcome you too. So let's just take a breath. We have a very pretty day here in Williamsburg. The sun is shining, and the birds are singing and eating stuff that's all around to munch on. I threw some bread out before I came into the church today, and so all is well, right? Just rest for a moment in knowing that really, no matter what's on your mind, what's on your heart, what you're anxious about or fearful about, as you take that deep breath, just know and feel that peace, that really in this moment, all is well. All is well. We feel that the essence of that peace in this room right now as we had that beautiful opening song, and we had the beautiful flute that kind of led us into this feeling of being comforted, being surrounded by love from each other, and then also from the infinite power of love that we are, surrounds us now, allowing us and giving us everything that we need in this moment. Whatever that is for you, we are grateful to know that at any time during the day or night when we start getting a little frenzied, we start getting worried or angry, we stop, we take a breath, allow ourselves to go into that inner place where we find the peace that passes all human understanding. We feel that peace in this place now, right here in Unity Williamsburg Spiritual Center. And we hope we can allow that peace to permeate throughout this area, throughout our state, our country, and our world. We're grateful to know the things that we know. And we are blessed. And so it is. Amen. All right, we're going to stand again and we're going to sing another song. And it's called Work Wonders from Within. And if you'd like to stand and sing that, that's fine. And I know Paulette's going to give us a little introduction before we get started to kind of remind us of the words and the music. So, hit it. that beautiful tradition here in Unity that I guess I shouldn't have asked you to sit down for. But look around at someone in the room and recognize the essence of God that they are. And we do that by saying, the Christ in me greets the Christ in you. And the Christ in me greets the Christ in you. So please stand one more time. And just do that to one another and honor that beautiful presence of light and love with each one of us. Yeah. Isn't that powerful? I mean, imagine if when we went out the door here today, every single person we saw, we recognized as the presence of God. So please be seated. So let us say our Unity affirmation together that kind of claims who we are as Unity Williamsburg Spiritual Center. So we say this together. Unity Williamsburg Spiritual Center is a radiant center of divine life, light, and love. We are a thriving, prosperous spiritual community that honors the divine presence in all and celebrates our oneness through love and service in our community. Does that kind of say who we are?
Yes.
Yeah? Kind of like that? All right. Now let's say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. All right, our next song, which I'd like you to stand up to and sing, is I'm Reaching Out. Do you remember Daniel Nehemiah's song, I'm reaching out to feel the infinite? I'm reaching out to know the divine. Well, we're going to sing that now, and Paulette's going to play it through one time so we can kind of remember how it goes, and then hopefully we'll be ready to sing. So please stand. I always loved Daniel Nehemiah's music. I know He was actually awarded something at the Unity Conference this year. I can't remember what the award was, but I did see his name come up for his contribution to New Thought Music. So he is well deserving of that, for sure, for sure. So just wanted to see, is there any new faces here for the very first time? Oh. Well, Paula, we're so glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, that's wonderful. So we'll be seeing your face more, a lot, right?
Yes,
we'll be seeing your face a lot. She was here early, she's practicing, she practiced with Susan for next week, and talking to Miriam, so she really be getting your feet wet, as they say. So thank you. We're very, very grateful for that. And if anybody at home is joining us for the first time, please come visit us sometime. If you're vacationing in Williamsburg or the surrounding area, we're just minutes from Colonial Williamsburg. So come on and join us. We'd love to see your beautiful faces here in our center. So anyone have a prayer request or a celebration that they might want to share with all of us to hold in prayer this week? Anybody? Yes.
I think I told you all about our friends who have a son that had the aneurysm and he's been in a coma. He's still in a coma, and their insurance runs out on July 15th. So we're just praying that he comes out of the coma so they can, I guess, reset things.
Yeah.
They're trying to just figure out what to do with his son. It's very difficult. And he's 22 years old.
Yeah. We see a lot of wisdom surrounding that whole situation and that healing presence for right and perfect outcome for the family, friends, and for him. Yeah. Remember, when people offer their prayers and their celebrations, think about them all during the week. When you're thinking and you're taking prayer time and all. Anybody else? Okay, Ray?
Healing prayers for Kathy.
Kathy? Okay, we continue to surround her in our loving prayers. Ray?
For safe travels. My wife's younger brother drove up from Destin, Florida. Will be heading back tomorrow. And her younger sister flew out from San Diego, and she'll be heading back tomorrow.
Yeah.
So safe travels for both of them, and prayers for my wife, Susie.
Okay. And we celebrate your healing, right? We
Yes.
celebrate your healing, Caleb. Yeah, getting better and better. Anyone else? Okay, Amy and Marge.
For Jane, and her, surrounding her in prayer as she purchased her surgery this week.
Yeah, we surround Jane and healing energy too as she has her procedure and gets better, right? Margie?
A great joy. We'll have our Charleston family here all week, and just safe travels for everyone as they fly in on different times. So we go to take them all.
All right, we see a fun time for the whole family.
Yes.
How about that? Everybody getting where they need to be and having a good time with one another. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
Yes, the Colano family is celebrating almost remarkable recovery of my father's health. He is in better health than he has been probably the last 3 years. He attributes it to he stopped taking his medication. And
Okay.
one other celebration. I haven't been at church in recent weeks or several weeks. It feels really good.
Oh, well, good. We were missing you. But we know people have got, things going on. We know that in Unity there's nothing that says you have got to come to church and do in the service, or, you've sinned. No, we just know that people are taking care of themselves in other ways. So we're glad you're here today. And Steve.
For my own personal health, the last 2 weeks have been the best weeks of my life. It's God's invention. I'm fantastic. Keep it up.
All right, cool. All right. So let us just say our prayer together. Also, I want to keep in prayer all the people in Florida with that whole building thing and, weird, odd, unusual. So we'll hold those folks and their families in our thoughts and prayers this week also. So let's pray together as we center ourselves in the one presence and the one power. We realize that our thoughts have the power to heal and bless. We send out now, carrying love, peace, joy, and light to situations and celebrations that have been requested, thought by thought and prayer by prayer.
everybody. This is the day the Lord hath made, and let us rejoice in it. We had a good downpour yesterday that nourished all the flowers, and today they're blooming. So, perfect. As you know, next Sunday is the 4th of July. So I thought I'd read a few statements by some of our leaders regarding our country that I thought it might be good to carry these thoughts with you during the week. Along with John F. Kennedy, my favorite president was Ronald Reagan, and he said, "We Americans are blessed with the opportunity to stand for something, liberty, freedom, and fairness. And these things are worth fighting for, and these things are worth devoting our lives to." Good thoughts. Michelle Obama said, "The fact is, with every friendship you make and every bond of trust that you establish, you are shaping the image of America projected to the rest of the world." I think most of you probably know I'm going to be the guest speaker next week, and that's going to be the main theme of my subject, is going to be how we project to the rest of the world. So that was a perfect statement by Michelle Obama. From Abraham Lincoln, "I like to see men and women proud of the place in which they live. I also like to see men and women live so that their place will be proud of them." Isn't that a great statement? Not to sound negative, but about 3 weeks ago I saw in the paper that there was a young girl who was competing for the Olympic team, U.S. Olympic team, and she stated that one of the reasons she wanted to make the team is so she could win a medal in the Olympics, so she could burn the American flag on the Olympic podium. She's crazy. And I thought about that, how much hate must be in her heart to feel that way after she's been nurtured by this country, had coaches that helped her, becoming a good athlete, all those kind of things, and to make that kind of statement. And fortunately, she came in 7th, so she didn't make the team. But anyhow, I was just thinking, if I were ever to meet with this girl, the first question I'd say is, okay, you have all this anger about our country, but what have you done to make our country better? That would be the first question I'd ask. And the second thing I'd say is, you need to come to Unity Spiritual Center. I think all can do it. She needs our help. So, anyhow, enough of that. And the daily word for today, to me, is just perfect. Just perfect. And it's something that I have to remind myself on a continuing basis. I do what is mine to do and release the rest. Ooh, that's hard to do sometimes. Hard. I am equipped with powerful spiritual tools to use towards creating the life of my dreams. Through prayer and meditation, visualization, and affirmation, I am willing to work for what I want to see manifest in my life and in the lives of those I care about. But sometimes I can be so focused on what I'm doing that I forget the importance of stepping back from my efforts and releasing my attachment to specific outcomes. There's great peace that comes from knowing that I've done all that I can do, and then in perfect peace and clarity, release outcomes to the divine that is in all people and in all circumstances. Gosh, these are powerful statements. I heed my guidance to discern when to take action and when to yield to the activity of spirit. I want to read that again, because it's so pertinent to me. I hope it's pertinent to some of you. I heed my guidance to discern when to take action and when to yield to the activity of spirit. Good thought. Strive first for the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. From the book of Matthew. Very good. And the scripture reading for today is, what you say in a body. You can say nothing outside this body. You must awaken while in this body, for everything exists in it. Resurrect in this life. The Gospel of Peter. So we're going to have an excellent talk today by Reverend Ginny, who, as we saw on the opening up our service, Alice in Wonderland. Both Reverend Denise and Reverend Ginny have been talking about children's books over the last 4 weeks. So I decided to get into the mode of all this, and earlier this week I watched A Wrinkle in Time, the movie that Reverend Denise talked about last week. And I have to say, it's not my kind of movie. It's definitely a kid's movie. It's like a Harry Potter movie. So, I can't say I loved it, but it was certainly interesting. And then, during the pour down in rain yesterday, I read Alice in Wonderland. And here's the thing about it. Here's what I was kind of fascinated. I mean, of course, I read Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz many years ago. But I remember as a young boy, in particular, reading Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Well, when you read those stories as a young boy, oh man, this is an adventure story. There's pirates and gold and murders and all the things, and hiding from the law, and in Huckleberry Finn, here's this Huckleberry Finn and a runaway slave that's floating down the Mississippi River on a raft. And they're fishing and having long talks and meet up with some weird people and all this, and it's an adventure story. So about 30 years later, I took a night course in American literature, and one of the first things on the list to read were Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. And my first reaction was, I don't want to read those again. I read those as a kid, but I thought, no, I'm taking the course, read it, and we'll see what the professor has to say. I was astounded when I read it, again, 30 years later. Oh my God, I realized that it was full of political irony and humor and a treatise on the way times were at that point in time. Totally different aspect from it, which we all get simply by becoming more mature, aging, and seeing the world in different eyes. So Reverend Ginny today is talking about Alice in Wonderland, so we're going to hear about a little girl that falls down a rabbit hole and comes up with some weird characters. So we'll see how those relate to unity principles. And after that, Paulette is going to play Never Never, some special music for us. So, Reverend Ginny, the floor is yours.
All right. Alice in Wonderland. I imagine most of you, like Bob was saying, may have read the story somewhere along the line in your life, or had it read to you, or you read it yourself. But today, when we look at it a little differently. So Alice in Wonderland was written by Lewis Carroll, whose real name was Charles Dodgson, in 1895. He was an English writer, mathematician, logician, Anglican deacon. That's not the right word. Not Anglican. Anglican. That's it. It didn't come out right. Anglican deacon and photographer. And that when he wrote the book, all of the characters in the book actually worked with him. So you can imagine when the book first came out, it would have been a little different. The real Alice was the daughter of the dean of the Christ Church College. He was the King of Hearts, and his wife was the Queen of Hearts. Just to name a few that literally wrote this book, gave them different names, but it was actually people that he knew. And so he was telling their story, which again, at first they weren't reading it to children. They thought it was a little too grim and spooky and that kind of thing. So but here we are today with a whole nother set of eyes on the book. It's the most translated work of any book. It's been translated into 176 languages. So there obviously is an interest in Alice and what she's up to. So as we look through the book and read the story, we're not going to look at it from the author's view or someone else's view of how they interpret the book. Because obviously, if it's been translated that many times, there's 1,000 different editions of the book. You know, who's to say what the real story is, right? So, but we're going to take this journey of Alice in Wonderland through it as a metaphysician. And you know Unity is a metaphysical church, but then you go, what do you mean, Jenny? I don't really know what that means. So this is what metaphysics is all about. The meaning refers to the inner or esoteric meaning of a name defined as it applies to every unfolding individual and to our relationship with the infinite. Okay? So it's a name is defined and how it applies to each of us as we are unfolding. And like Bob said, you know, you read something 30 years later, it doesn't even sound the same, much less have the same meaning, right? So this is how our journey is going to go through this book. So I'm going to tell you what I think some of these things are, but the real idea is, you know, go home and read the book and pick out these different parts and pieces, and what do they say to you? Because I'm going to give you my interpretation, but that's not your interpretation possibly, right? And we're all our own metaphysicians, so we can all look at things and decide, how do they affect me? What does that mean to me? The journey of Alice is really equated to our own spiritual journey, through which we consciously unfold and begin to live from our oneness with God, Spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it. And in Unity, we call that our Christ nature. So this story is trying to help us move through, how is that unfolding for you? There are 24 characters in the book. We're not going to talk about all 24. That's a whole day seminar, right? But there were some that I thought were kind of interesting, so that's where I paused and looked at them through a metaphysical understanding. So here we have Alice. She's with her two sisters, and they're on the bank of the Thames. And it's a beautiful day, they're with a couple of friends, and they're reading this story. But Alice is not interested at all. She was considering in her own mind, she's kind of daydreaming herself, when all of a sudden a white rabbit went running by with pink eyes very close to where she was sitting. Well, that didn't seem all that strange, right? There was nothing so very remarkable in this, nor did Alice think it so very much out of the way to hear the rabbit say to itself, oh dear, I shall be late. When she thought it over, it occurred to her that she was wondering what was that, right? But that didn't kind of bother her until she noticed that the rabbit took a watch out of his pocket and looked at it and then hurried on. That got Alice's attention. So she begins to follow the rabbit. Right down, as Bob said, a long and narrow well. Down, down, down she fell. But on the way down, she noticed that on the walls there were different things. There was a cabinet, there was a cupboard, there was glassware, there was a jar of marmalade. So think about this. You're going down, down, down. You don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're going to wind up, right? But you're seeing these things on the wall. When you have to start wondering, what is going on? What's happening to me? So she begins to go, and when she gets down to the bottom, bam, right down on the floor. Right down on the ground. And she continues to follow the white rabbit. But things are already starting to change for her. So my question to you, just as with Alice, when along the spiritual journey did things start to change for you? Was there a time that you remember when all of a sudden you said, you know, I don't know, maybe what I was taught traditionally, which I was Catholic, it doesn't seem to work for me any longer. But I know that there's something else. Do you even remember that time in your life when maybe that happened? When you really flipped that switch and said, no, I need to seek something else. Anybody remember that for themselves? A real specific time? Okay, we got a couple of people nodding their heads. Yeah. Yeah. What caught your attention that sent you on this journey? Was it that you were confused about the things that you had been being taught as a little child? So many of you have told me stories that when you were young and you were in like Sunday school and you started asking the teacher questions or the priest a question or the minister, they didn't have an answer. So what would they say? Well, you just go over there and sit down and be quiet. You know, this is what we're going to teach you, so no questions, right? Or was it a traumatic incident in your life that began you to wonder about the meaning of life? Have you ever felt on your spiritual journey that you were falling? Or maybe that you felt dizzy or unsure? Has anybody ever felt that? You know, where you really felt confused? I remember when I first got to Unity, I would be so pumped up when I left the Sunday service. And I would leave there, and I was selling real estate at the time, and I left, and there was a toll booth and a bridge that I had to cross. I put my money in, but the toll arm didn't go all the way up, but I needed to go. I was just buzzing from the message, so I broke the arm of the toll booth off. Because I would call a friend and I'd say, let me tell you what they said at church today. This is so good, but I can't wait to share this with you. I would be so high from what I was learning, what I was putting into my mind that was different. And it did feel like I was falling. And I wasn't sure where I was going to land, but I knew it was right. I knew this is where I needed to be. In Emily Katie's book, Lessons in Truth, she calls this chemicalization. And that's a time when there's a condition in our mind that has been brought about that there's a conflict of what I already know and a higher spiritual realization comes in contact with that. An old error state of consciousness. And resistance comes and a commotion is created in consciousness. When we go to change the way we've thought, the way we've been taught, what we believe, and all of a sudden we're trying to put something new in, there's confusion. And sometimes you feel like you're falling down a well and I don't know where this is going to go. I just remember feeling that so much when I was moving out of my Catholic understandings of things into a new thought understanding of things. We're back to the story. Upon landing, she begins to run after the rabbit until she comes to a hall. There were doors all around the hall, but they were all locked. And when Alice had been all the way down one side and all the way up the other side, trying every single door, she walked sadly down the middle, wondering, how am I ever going to get out of here? Have you ever felt that way? On your spiritual journey? I don't really know what to do. I don't really know where to go. I'm not really sure. Robert Brummett, a minister in Unity, wrote a book called Finding Yourself in Transition. And in this book, he talks about the stages and phases of going through a time of transition in our lives. In the book, he states that during this time of transition, it's like we are in a hallway or a corridor. None of the doors are open yet. And he calls it the time, he calls it the void. The time where you wait. You don't really know what to do. Remember the other week when we were reading the Dr. Seuss book, remember that place was called the waiting place, where people would just wait, right? They weren't ready to move ahead yet. Well, that's kind of what happened in this hallway for Alice. But suddenly, Alice notices a table with a small gold key upon it. So she takes the key, she tries it in all the doors. It doesn't fit any of the doors. It's little. These are the big doors. And then she noticed there was a curtain. She pulls it aside. She notices a little tiny door. She goes, I'm going to use the key to open that door, which she does. And when she opens the door, it's little teeny tiny. It goes back, and then all of a sudden there's this big, beautiful garden. Big, beautiful garden. She goes, oh my gosh, I want to get to the garden. She said, I wonder if I could be like a telescope, where I could make myself really tiny, and then I could get through the hole, and then I could be in the garden. But that didn't happen. It didn't happen at all. Do you remember the book by Emmett Fox called The Golden Key? Anybody remember that little book? And his whole idea, he says, it says, what do you do when you feel like you're living in a world of confusion or things do not make any sense? Once again, kind of the way Alice was feeling going down the rabbit hole. What do I do when things seem out of control and problems seem to be coming my way? His golden key, just like Alice had, was remove your focus from the problem and place your attention on God, on Spirit. He made it sound so easy. Why isn't it easy though? It's not very easy to do. But this is the golden key, right? So what does Alice do? As she peeks into this little doorway and sees this beautiful garden, but she was too big to go through the passageway. But what does she say? Oh, how I wish I could shut up like a telescope. I think I could, if only I know how to begin. For you see, so many out-of-the-way things had happened lately that Alice had begun to think that very few things indeed were really impossible. She was having quite the experience, wasn't she? But Alice was too big, so she couldn't go through the little hole to get into the garden. Where do you think our garden exists? Where do you think we can go to find the beauty and the peace and the aromas of a beautiful garden where we could just sit and be and enjoy the beauty around us? In Psalm 91:1, this lovely garden is called the secret place of the Most High. In Hebrews 9:3, the secret place, this garden is called the Holy of Holies. In John 14:11, it's called the kingdom of God within you. Within you. How do we get there? We pray. We meditate. In order to realize that indeed nothing is really impossible. And I know you guys all know this. I know it, right? When we sit in that silence and block out with all the world noise around us, right? We find that place within us that is so sweet, so peaceful. That sacred place within us. It never goes away. So here she was trying to get into a garden, but our garden is with us all the time. We don't even have to shrink down like a telescope. She meets many characters on her adventure. The first one she meets, we'll talk about Alice's encounter with the caterpillar, who was just sitting there smoking a hookah, right? Just as brazen as could be. And says to Alice, who are you? And Alice says, well, this was not an encouraging opening for a conversation. I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then. And then the caterpillar says, what do you mean by that? Explain yourself. I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir, said Alice, because I am not myself, you see. And the caterpillar said, I don't see. And Alice said, I'm afraid I can't put it more clearly, for I can't understand it myself to begin with, and being so many different sizes in a day is very confusing. Remember, Alice had changed her size in that hallway, and she had changed her size many times. depending on what she ate or she drank. So what does that mean to us? Changing sizes, being confused, not understanding yourself any longer. Do you think that happens to us as we grow spiritually? Do you think that that happens to us when we're trying to figure out a new way of being in the world as a spiritual being? And how would it feel? Maybe we don't worry as much. Maybe things seem a little bit lighter and less intense. Maybe we find we have more patience, more peace, more joy, whatever. As we begin to find out, who am I? One with the infinite power and presence, living and moving and having its being as you and me. And the final advice from the caterpillar says to Alice, keep your temper. What do you think that might mean? Does it mean to remain centered and balanced with your temperament? Not to fly off the handle? Not to get overly angry and frustrated like the girl that you were talking about, Bob, who was angry and frustrated at our country for some reason? But maybe stay centered and balanced. Then she comes along and meets the Cheshire Cat. And of course, he's got that wild grin with all the teeth, right? And Alice thought, well, he looks like he could be friendly, even though he's got the big teeth and a lot of claws. So she says, Cheshire Puss, would you tell me which way am I supposed to go? And the cat says, well, that depends a good deal on where you want to go. I don't much care where, said Alice. It doesn't matter which way you go, said the cat. So long as I get somewhere, Alice added as an explanation. And the cat said, oh, you're sure to do that if you only walk long enough. So she wanted to figure out how to get home, basically. And then the cat asked her, well, where do you want to go? She doesn't have a clue. I really love these lines. Because many times when we are unfolding spiritually, we really don't know where to go next. Or we don't know what to do. That's why a spiritual center is so important. That people can come here, share their journey with one another. We like to read books, right? And try to get information and get new ideas, right? We may listen to people like Eckhart Tolle or Wayne Dyer and a plethora of other spiritual teachers out there on YouTube. But it really is us to decide, where do I want to go? Where is this journey going to take me? Just like she was asking the cat, right? And I love it, the fact that, we have all these options to look at things and read and encounter. And it's still, though, it all boils down to me and my journey. What do I want for me? How do I want to live my life? What do I want to do? How do I want to show up? Right? Emily Cady says in her book, Lessons in Truth, she said, please stop reading stuff. Really. Don't read. Start to use it. Implement it. Make it part of your everyday life. Right? And then, of course, she meets the scary queen. Whenever the queen doesn't like something, she just says, off with your head, off with their head, off with their head, over and over and over again. But Alice, she didn't get upset about it. She stayed very centered and very poised in order to not offend the queen. But what does the queen represent to us? What do you think that might be? I was thinking that maybe the queen is that part of us that represents the things that we're most fearful about. The parts of ourselves that say, you can't. You're never going to be able to do this. Why are you even bothering? And of course, now as I've gotten older, you know, we always have the one about, well, you know, you're too old to do that, but, you know, that's a lot of baloney. Who do you think you are? Do you know that some of the most amazing people were told when they were young that they would never amount to anything? People like Albert Einstein, Michael Jordan, Elvis Presley, Walt Disney, Oprah Winfrey. And guess what? They said, I don't care what you say. I know who I am. Right? I'm a magnificent being. I'm one with the presence and power of the infinite. I'm one with divine mind. I can do whatever it is that I wish to do. Because we're all created in that image and likeness of the infinite. And that energy of God is really, whatever you want to call it, God, Spirit, universe, it wants to express itself as us. And you know what we say, well, how do we know how to do that? I think that's part of our innate being. We do know how to do it. We just have to turn within, find the guidance, get still, listen, as Bob was saying, get still and follow that guidance. That Spirit is moving through you, speaking through you, wanting you to move and do things and ushering you into the next phase of your life. Yeah. So, our journey, of course, is not ended in the sense of all the characters, but of course Alice finds herself back on the shoreline, and she was just dreaming. She had one heck of a dream, didn't she? And she met all these different people. So I was going to end our time for our meditation with a couple of years ago. Somebody wrote a book called Using One of the Nursery Rhymes, and this is kind of how I feel about just when we get anxious about life, busy, and all like that. It's row, row, row your boat gently down on the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Let's just take a moment and turn within. Maybe somebody in the talk, maybe somebody jumped out at you and you said, oh, yeah, I'm just like the Cheshire Cat, or I'm just like the caterpillar. Maybe that'll come, some fresh idea will come to you around the characters and all. So just take a breath and relax and turn within. In the silence. In the silence. In the silence of your heart. For just a moment. another deep breath and open your eyes. All right, never. That's beautiful. Thank you, Lord. I appreciate that. So, everybody back? All right. So this is our time to bless Unity Williamsburg Spiritual Center with your love offerings and your gifts. So if you'd like to hold them in your hand and place them over your heart, or just send beautiful, beautiful energy into your gift to this place as we say our prayer. Divine love, through me, bless and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. We still have our basket in the back. I know we could hand out the little bag to go around, but it's kind of nice to have our little basket in the back, and as you leave, you'll just put your blessing in there. We just know that whatever we give, and we give with a joyful heart, knowing that whatever we give, the vibration of that, it comes back to us, heaped up, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And for this truth that sets us free, we are grateful. And so it is. And Bob's going to come back up. He's got some announcements for us and a little bit of information.
Terrific job, Ginny. Wonderful job of just the things we were talking about how it has a totally different meaning as we get older and a little wiser. It's interesting that you would. The one thing that you mentioned, that the one I laughed about the most, was when she met the caterpillar, and she said, "Which way should I go?" And he said, "Well, where do you want to go?" And she said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "It doesn't make any difference where you go." I don't know, that one just struck me. I love that one. I laughed about that one for about 5 minutes. I said, "Yep, I did that one." So anyhow, good job. And thank you for the music. Our monthly board meeting is today, and everyone's more than welcome to attend. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to be the speaker next week, so wear your red, white, and blue. And I have a special guest that I'm bringing next week who's going to be part of my talk, and you'll be quite moved to meet this fellow. Today, our tickets for our raffle baskets are going on sale. So the baskets are on display in the fellowship room, and the tickets are there. We're selling $5 a piece, and if you buy 5 of them, you get 4 for $20. So please support us in this, because this is part of our fundraising effort. And feel free to sell tickets to any of your friends who might be willing to take a chance on a few baskets. There's a lot of goodies back there, including one with a lot of margarita mix, which I guarantee I've already pumped. What am I trying to say? Prime the pump. Prime the pump. Like see, I can't even say it. Also I'm sorry. So our drawing is going to be on July 11th, not next week, but July 11th. So we got 2 weeks to buy and sell tickets. Starting next week, in July and August, we're going to be collecting food. Is it for the food pantry? It doesn't say exactly who we're giving it for.
One of the food areas in town that needs.
Yeah.
There's several that are.
Okay, so the food pantry. We'd like you to bring items like peanut butter, canned items, fruit, chili, beans, fish, or stew. and boxed items as cereal, rice, or pasta. Those would be all good things that we can give to them. Our prayer chaplain today is Reverend Jan, and if you'd like to have a prayer for yourself or your family or anybody, she'll be in the back and we'll be glad to sit down with you. And all prayer requests are received in confidence. There are no new people here today, so we won't talk about that. But if you'd like to become a member of Unity Williamsburg Spiritual Center, we have forms, and you can talk to the ministers about that if you people at home might like to do it. And does anybody else have any announcements today?
So Sandy's gonna be selling the tickets, so she's the ticket lady. And then also we have something new added to our website. If people go on there, they can just put in their information for their email address, and it'll automatically send it to us, and they'll automatically start getting the weekly update. So that's a real sweet little new addition to the website.
I also remember you asked me to mention that if anybody would like to bring in a dish for our after-service fellowship, feel free to do so.
Especially 4th of July, we were kind of thinking of maybe having it like a little meal thing. So bring a little dish, share, whatever you feel like you'd like to share. Yeah.
And since I haven't done this for about 4 years, I brought in the red, white, and blue pinwheels for everybody next week. So that should bring in more people. Okay, I guess we'll do our read song.
Wonderland, and you use that for time of prayer and meditation this week. see what you glean from the story, and just know that we know you'll have an amazing week. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we see the Christ in each and every one of you. Have an awesome week. Blessings. Amen.